We always have our guests introduce themselves first. I'd love for you to just tell us who you are and where you're joining us from.
Okay, my name's Lara Dawn. I am located in Canada, not far from Toronto. I am an elementary school teacher. I'm in my 25th year of teaching, and 10 of those years were in special education. And am a mother to two children with ADHD. I
Goodness.
also have ADHD, and I'm the creator and the founder of the ADHD Village, which is an online support. And I coach parents. I
Right.
mostly work with moms. We have a beautiful program called the ADHD Warrior Mamas. And I absolutely love, love, love coaching because years ago, when my children were young, before I was diagnosed with ADHD and before my youngest was diagnosed, life was very chaotic and stressful. And even though I was a teacher with a toolbox full of tools, I wasn't able to use those tools. I wasn't able to implement the strategies that I knew would help my kids. And it wasn't until I found a new and better way through the coaching methods that I now use, I really focused on myself. Things settled for my whole family. The relationships in the family improved, the behavior improved, emotional regulation improved. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. I need to help other moms get this, calm the chaos and bring more connection.
That's a
And
wonderful
yeah.
story. I love what you say about having to focus on yourself because that's often a really hard lesson that I'm also a mom with two kids or one kid with ADHD and it's a lesson that I definitely had to learn. I want to ask you about your two kids. How old are they?
I have two sons. They just turned 14 and 16.
Oh my
And
God.
one has the combined ADHD type, and one has the inattentive ADHD type.
Can you tell us how you all came to be diagnosed?
My oldest, it was very clear from the time he was young. I would pick him up from daycare, and the kids would be lined up waiting to tell me the stories of the trouble he had gotten into that day.
I know
Like the
that.
poor kid, he just wanted his mommy, and there's these kids, like it was very clear from a young age that there was something going on. Kindergarten teachers noticed right away, so that was an easy diagnosis, right? Those boys who have lots of energy, who get into trouble, who are having a difficult time focusing, they might be messy, disorganized, all the things. That was easy. My youngest has inattentive ADHD. And at around the time of 8, I thought, I think there's something going on. Quite, he presented very differently. But my concern with him was him walking home from school from the school bus because I knew he wasn't really paying attention to his surroundings. He was often daydreaming, and I was afraid that could get him into trouble. He also had difficulties with the emotional regulation, which is a big piece, and difficulty with being organized. But when I spoke to the teachers about it, they didn't see anything. And I still pushed. I was like, I want you to fill out the forms because I really think he has ADHD. And
Interesting. Yeah, hang on, because it's
yeah.
interesting. Our focus is a lot on girls and how girls don't get diagnosed. It's very interesting that your son, who had the more inattentive
Mhm.
variety, almost didn't get diagnosed. So
Mhm.
just to make that point, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
continue.
so it came back. He doesn't have ADHD because it didn't present at home and at school. It has to present in two
Exactly.
environments.
Yeah.
I let it go for a couple years, and then I went back. I was like, no, that this isn't right. And the reason why is because he's a high achiever. He's a people pleaser. He has very high coping skills.
Right.
He's very intelligent and interested in school type subjects. He was able to mask his symptoms at school very well. So a teacher who is not really educated on ADHD, and
Yeah.
especially inattentive ADHD, certainly wouldn't see it. And teachers typically are looking for that hyperactivity, which he
Mhm.
wasn't presenting in an exterior way. It was happening interior, like in his mind, where he had lots of thoughts going on and difficulty organizing tasks in his brain, where teachers couldn't see that. And when he'd come home at the end of the day, he'd let it all
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Curious how many of your kids that you coach or families in the families
Mm.
that you coach have are girls.
I mostly work with moms. quite a mix, girls and boys. Their children are girls and boys. But what we've noticed is often, and I have the same story, mom is diagnosed after the kids. That's interesting.
Of course. No, that was definitely my experience, and maybe it was yours too, huh? Or
Mm.
what do you, when you talk about warrior moms, what do you mean?
Mm. So I'm parenting is the most important job in the world. And I think when you're raising a child with ADHD or any kind of neurodivergent, really, there's extra layers of challenges.
Hmm.
And I know for myself with the ADHD, with those challenges, and because it's an invisible disability, it's not clear to onlookers what those challenges are. There was a lot of judgment and criticism. And having ADHD myself, people with ADHD tend to be really sensitive to criticism. You really need to step into your power. You need to step into your confidence. An ADHD warrior mama is the calm in the storm for their children. They are confident in their parenting and they are really deeply connected. And the way we become this ADHD warrior mama is to face what's going on, really take a look at ourselves. There's a lot of reflection on ourselves and noticing our own triggers and our own emotions and our own thoughts and limiting beliefs and doing that work there so that we can be the best version of ourselves for ourselves, because we are humans who deserve to have a beautiful, extraordinary life, but also for our children.
For sure. And when you were getting into coaching, did you rely mainly on all your experiences as a teacher and then as a mother, or did you go someplace else to educate yourself about how to be?
Mm. Yeah, I was trained by a master neuro coach and a certified tapping instructor. My
Okay.
background is in that neuroscience. It goes beyond like your thoughts and your beliefs, but really like into the nervous system and the neuropeptides and all of that stuff that's going on. We look at what's happening in the brain and apply that to the coaching. So it's really based on the
Interesting.
latest.
Tapping, I learned somebody told me about the tapping when I was going through my struggles many years ago. And it's really a calming and a centering technique, isn't it?
Yes, the traditional tapping, which is EFT, emotional freedom technique, where you tap on the tapping points, it calms the nervous system because it calms the amygdala. So the amygdala in people with ADHD can be really overactive. The amygdala, I like to call the watchdog in your brain. It's always looking for danger. It's what puts you in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. Tapping on points, specific points, regulates and calms that amygdala. And when you're calmer, you're able to better process your emotions and make more rational decisions, bring that executive functioning back online. The type of tapping I do was created by a lady named Sarah Longoria. It's called the rapid relief technique. The idea of this sort of tapping isn't just to just calm and neutralize the emotions, but it's to really go deep, process those emotions, and get them out of your body.
God, that's such a great thing to teach moms, I think, because I wrote a family memoir about ADHD and I was almost going to call it Hotheads because that was the main problem. All these
Yes.
conflicts because both of us were in that hypersensitive amygdala firing. That's a wonderful thing to teach moms. Do moms of daughters have any special struggles that you've noticed?
Big emotions.
Okay,
And a lot of pay attention to your daughter's moon cycle because the hormones can impact
sure.
the emotions and exasperate the ADHD symptoms. That's
Yeah,
what I'm noticing a lot of moms saying.
interesting. And anything else? Do girls mask their ADHD more than boys, do you think?
Yes,
'Cause we're,
yes. And it's much harder to see. So as a teacher, like I'm very hypersensitive to noticing these things in children. And girls tend to have more of the inattentive type of ADHD. It kind of slips under the radar. Girls tend to want to they're more mature than boys, right? So if you're looking at a grade 5 class where the kids are all around 10 years old, the girls are a little bit more mature. That piece alone impacts what teachers are seeing in the classroom. The girls mature faster. They also tend to want to please more at school, and the symptoms that might be displayed at school might be a little bit more of the internal pieces that are harder to see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's so great that you have those 25 years as a teacher to really form those observations.
Yeah.
At the Inattentive Coalition, we think that some of the after effects of ADHD can be harmful, that it's really
Mm.
important to have kids screened early, like by second grade. What do you think of that? Do you think that's reasonable, unreasonable?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially with girls, because once you have that proper diagnosis, then you can have a tailored treatment plan. And what happens with girls often is they're diagnosed with anxiety or depression. And they may also have anxiety or depression, but the symptoms of the anxiety and depression, the underlying cause could be the ADHD that's creating what we're seeing as anxiety or depression. But it is really important to have a proper, full diagnosis and to determine and take some playing around with but determine what is the primary challenge. Is it the ADHD or is it the anxiety if you're presenting with both?
For sure. Yeah, no, ADHD, it seems like studies have shown it's particularly harmful in girls as far as anxiety, depression, suicide attempts, all that. And how else do you distinguish girls with ADHD and boys with ADHD in the classroom?
In the classroom. With a boy, a typical boy, and a lot of the research has been done on boys with the hyperactive or the combined type. So that's easier to spot. These are the kids who are maybe having a hard time standing in line. They have a hard time keeping their hands to themselves. They're blurting out. For a girl, you might see that she's daydreaming or just off task, or it takes her longer to do assignments, or she maybe loses her assignments, or when she hands them in and maybe she doesn't get the assignment a mark that she was hoping for, she really like beating herself up over it. There's a lot of negative self-talk that goes
Yeah.
with ADHD. So you can see how it may look like something else. It may look like anxiety. It may look like she's just being hard on herself, but it could be more. And then she might struggle with social relationships. Girls with ADHD can be very social and make friends easily, but they may have a difficulty keeping the friends because they may not be picking up on those social cues.
Reading the room. Yeah, I think that's a problem. What's your stance on medication? Is that something that you end up recommending a lot?
Yeah, I can't recommend because I'm a teacher and a coach. I try to be really mindful of that. I think there's lots of treatment options. I know what the doctors recommend, and the doctors definitely recommend treatment, and it's a combination of treatments, medication included. What ADHD medication typically does is it gives your brain dopamine and norepinephrine or adrenaline. ADHD brains have an imbalance of those neurochemicals. And those neurochemicals are needed to activate the executive function skills. ADHD is like a learning disability in executive function skills. These are the skills that take place in the frontal lobe of the brain: time management, planning, organizing, impulse control, social cues, conflict resolution, problem solving. All these things happen in this part of the brain. And if you're not getting the dopamine and adrenaline that you need, it's exponentially harder for you to access your executive function skills. And if you're emotionally dysregulated, it's even harder to access those skills. Medication evens the playing field. So I wouldn't be afraid to try it. There's all sorts of different kinds of medications. Really speak to your healthcare provider, see what's best for your child, but definitely some form of coaching or therapy or something alongside with the medication, because the pill doesn't teach the skill, but it can just regulate and calm things and help you be more open to learning those executive function skills.
But as you suggest, it's a tool in the toolbox. So, in addition to the medicine and the coaching, what other kinds of things do you recommend?
Mm. So for little children, like play therapy and or like parent coaching or parent therapy or like this, that is absolutely key, because I find with a lot of kids, the therapy, having the child go to therapy or coaching is often difficult because they don't have the connection and the safety with the adult. If the parent can go and seek the help and they're learning the skills, they're the ones who are with the kids. To me, that's the best way. Really educate and support the parent. That's why I've got the ADHD Warrior Mamas. That's why I have the ADHD Village, because we need to support parents so they can support the kids. Sometimes an occupational therapist can be very helpful, because sometimes these kids are just really dysregulated and they need some calming strategies. Maybe they need some deep pressure or some exercises like the wheelbarrow or wall push-ups or things like that can help them to regulate their nervous system. So an OT can be very helpful.
I bet
I
as a
always,
teacher, you were really sensitive to that kind of thing. I remember a teacher in my kids' class who had the kids get up and do a hokey pokey in the middle of the lesson, or go out in the morning and run around the track.
absolutely. And that's good for all the kids. It's good for all of them.
Yeah, for sure. Did you learn other techniques as a teacher that really helped in the classroom?
I think definitely that movement piece is really helpful. And there's lots of ways that you can incorporate movement. And movement can be done in a way that you're being sensitive to the kids who maybe don't want to stand out as having the movement. Little fidget toys that they can have in their hand or even like on their wrist. Some of the little kids in my kindergarten class, they like to have jewelry to if they have that oral thing
Oh,
going on.
interesting.
An exercise band tied around the legs of a chair so they can kick their legs to get a
Oh,
little bit of movement.
nice.
Wiggle cushion is really nice. You can put the wiggle cushion on their chair or on the carpet, allowing them to choose where in the classroom they feel most comfortable sitting, because some kids might like to be front row center where it's easier for them to direct their attention towards the teacher. Some of them might like to be at the back of the room so that if they need to get up and move around, it's not as distracting and doesn't draw as much attention to them. Giving kids an opportunity to leave the classroom, maybe give them some heavy books to carry to another part of the school that gives them that movement, some of that heavy lifting, and it can be discreet too. Oh, I really need somebody to carry this to this room. Can you please be my helper? And I like to start the day outdoors with the kids. Outdoor exercise, outdoor movement. They're getting that self-regulation from the natural light, the natural air, the natural sounds. I think that's a beautiful way to start the day.
And I wish every teacher were as learned as you are about neurodiversity. What do you do to take care of yourself? What have you learned to help yourself with your ADHD?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is like the key.
Because I need some jewelry. I'm thinking wiggle cushion. I got it.
For me, a lot of self-compassion. We all make mistakes, but I think when you have ADHD and you make mistakes, it you compound your feelings and you can layer on guilt and shame. So really just giving yourself some compassion, and just an easy way is just like to give yourself a hug and just say like it's safe to make mistakes. It's okay.
It's your brain
Um,
surgeon. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that your perception is very much in line with what the Inattentive Coalition stands for. One of the things that they recommend is that not only to screen kids, but to screen family members early on. What do you think of that?
oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you a funny story of how I was diagnosed. I knew my oldest son had ADHD, so I formed a support group for moms in my neighborhood. We got together in a community room in a grocery store once a month just so we could connect and support each other. And I started bringing in some different experts to talk to us about things. And one day we sat in and said, okay, everybody put your hand up if you have ADHD. Everybody except for me and one other lady put up their hand. I didn't put my hand up. And they all looked at me. They're like, you totally have ADHD. I said, no, I don't. I would know. Like, I'm immersed in this world. I would know if I had it. They're like, you definitely have it. I was diagnosed though with anxiety. And then years later, a doctor said, yeah, like you totally have ADHD.
Just out of the blue, or were you
Oh,
asking?
I was at an appointment discussing my overwhelm, my
Yes,
anxiety, and my exhaustion.
yes.
Because
Wonder
that's
you
how,
do 4 different jobs. That's part of it. We overcommit. Yeah.
yeah. And you can hyper focus on things that you're passionate about. And I'm passionate about helping families with ADHD. And whatever I'm learning for myself, I want to share it out with others. It helps me, it helps you. So it's really this philosophy of for me, for you, for us.
That's beautiful. I think that's a great place to end it. What do you think, Cynthia? How are we doing? Cynthia?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Yes, from the start, I've always been impressed with Lara Dawn, her general
Amazing.
demeanor.
Yeah. Yes,
She's
we
such
just
a
terrific.
kind, caring person. It comes through in how she talks and what she says. We've created a website called Find the ADHD Girls, and I'm thinking these series of interviews will go there so parents who are thinking about their daughter having ADHD, they'll get some resources to start with. So,
Thank
is there
you.
anything else you want to say, Laura?
Oh, thank you for your kind words, and thank you both. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. It's so important.
You make it so easy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
If there's
Okay,
anything else I can do to help, just reach out. I'm happy to be a part of it.
All
yeah,
right. We'll
great.
keep in
Thank
touch.
you.
Thank
Good
you so
luck.
much.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We're gonna